A Lebanon man is dead after a house fire last week. Police say that Sean Lambert was involved in an argument with his wife on June 18th. They say it ended when one of them intentionally set their house on fire. His wife had only minor injuries. Police say it's an example of how domestic disturbances or batteries progress over time and end in serious injuries or even death. And joining me now to discuss domestic violence is YWCA Domestic Violence Intervention and Prevention Program Coordinator Jasmine Dowd. Jasmine, thanks so much for joining us. Now, you can't talk about that particular case, but that news release from the police department really kind of took pains to talk about a history of violence in that relationship and how it escalates over a period of time. Is that what you see?
Absolutely. What we really see is that people come to us thinking that, maybe if they get some counseling, it will help. And honestly, I don't have many success stories of domestic violence, just people deciding to stop being abusive. And so what we're really seeing is that it escalates. It starts with the emotional abuse. It starts with big arguments. It starts, some physical abuse and promises that it will end, and it just gets worse. And I don't have anything positive to say about how it's going to get better.
So that whole notion of getting worse has really been your experience.
Oh, absolutely. We have already seen 212 individuals in our shelter this year, and the stories are the same. We see that on average it takes 7 to 10 times for someone to leave, and it takes so long because they're hoping that the person they love, the abuse will stop, and it just doesn't happen.
So we hear that a lot. Why don't you just get out of that relationship? Are you seeing that the reason that they stay in the relationship is financial, or is it emotional, or kind of both? It's probably hard to make a black and white determination.
Right. I mean, it's a mixture of things. And first of all, when someone says, why doesn't that person just leave? That's a victim blaming sort of, well, they've done something wrong. We stay for a lot of reasons. We stay for love. We stay for finances. We stay because of the children. We stay. It's so complex that there's usually not just one thing. But we know that at the YWCA, what we really want to do is make sure that we can remove the barriers. So the financial, the counseling, the individual counseling, and the education part of it is so important.
You mentioned children, and you talked to me during the commercial break that you're seeing a lot more kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have definitely seen an increase of individuals that come to us, and they have 4 or 5 children. And I think before they didn't seek help because they thought it was impossible. If you have a large family, you think there's no help for you. And there definitely is out there, and we want to make sure that everyone knows. We don't want people to be bystanders anymore. I think the information, if you see somebody in the situation, it's very rare that there's domestic violence and that there's nobody that knows about it. Right. Usually there's a neighbor, there's a friend, there's a relative, police officer that can give that phone number and say there is help for you.
Okay, and the phone number is 423-1118. That's the YWCA's Domestic Violence Shelter, 423-1118. Jasmine Dowd, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Jeff.
I appreciate it. Good